Great Scott! This is your look at the new NECA Toys Back to the Future the Animated Series, Doc Brown and Einstein. Marty McFly and Doc Brown experience the adventure of a lifetime in an unlikely time machine as they travel to the past, the present, and the future, setting off a time-shattering chain reaction that disrupts the time-space continuum. We'll be checking out more Back to the Future animated series figures with a look at Doc Brown and his little dog Einstein. As we get the calculations in order for just how tall these figures stand, as always, I'd like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample that we're having a look at in this review. If you're in the market, by the way, of picking up any one of these animated Back to the Future figures, you should be able to find them right now in retail stores. Doc Brown stands 6 inches exactly. Switching that to centimeters, you're looking at the figure standing 15.4, about 15.5 centimeters tall. And seeing as Einstein is there, I would feel so disappointed in myself. I would hate to say it. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, but I'd feel disappointed that I didn't get the measurements going for Einstein. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Taking it to the very top of his little tiny dog ears, stopping it right there. It's about half the height of Doc Brown, 3.2 inches to be exact. And again, switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at little Einstein standing 8.3 centimeters in height. Now, though they have announced that we are going to be finally getting ourselves a movie Doc Brown, we don't obviously have that one right now that we can do a comparison. What we can, however, do a comparison for is we can bring an animated Marty McFly, which we've just recently had a look at. Still love this figure. And again, we have Doc Brown, animated treatment. We have Marty McFly, and we also have Biff for this first wave. I'm hoping it's not going to be the only wave of figures, and still we'll get Jules and Vern. If we're going to be getting Doc Brown, I would hope at the very least we're also going to be seeing a Jules and Vern. But that gives you a size idea of what Doc Brown and Einstein look like stacked up next to the Marty McFly that we already had a look at before. This is a fun release because not only are we getting Doc Brown, but we're also getting his little pooch, Einstein, as well. Einstein does come with his own accessory. He comes with the collar he has in the animated series. Nicely done here. This is a pentagon-shaped design with obviously some nice panel lining done to the edges there. And this is all very, very soft plastic. It's not the easiest, mind you, to get over top of Einstein's head. Let me just show you. Fit this around his ears. It's very tight quarters. Fit this down his neck. Fit this around his nose. And then very carefully just wiggle this down his face until eventually it settles lower down on the front of his neck. I'm probably not going to be doing this too often. It seems it's a little more difficult actually to get it off of his head. But once it's there, why am I going to remove it? That would just be absolutely silly. I guess while we're at it, let's have a look at Einstein here. Recreated quite nicely by NECA Toys to make it look like his cartoon counterpart. I do like the eyes that they gave him as well. Little small pupils of brown. They're like little tiny drops of chocolate, like a little Hershey's Kiss. Oh, that's so nice. He also does have the singular eyebrow there, sort of looks like a sheriff's mustache, and really shaggy looking ears. He's shaggy, in fact, everywhere, and all the individual shags are all panel lined as well. You can see the areas around his feet, the areas on his feet, and even the areas around his neck are all panel lined rather nicely, I have to admit. I guess we might as well just even look at the articulation on this guy, since we already have him in hand. Einstein's head rotates back and forth. You can also kind of move it up and down, but I think it's actually just pegged in place. I don't think it's a ball joint working behind the scenes. And then he has no articulation in the legs. He's basically just a staction figure. It's somewhat funny, though, that they gave him peg holes on the undersides of his feet. Stabilizing him and having him standing straight and not falling over isn't an issue at all, and nor am I ever really going to be putting him in display purposes. Like, I'm not going to have him upright because I can't move the legs on him. So it's a bit strange that he does have peg holes, and not on all 4 feet either. He only has it on the bottom. It's a bit strange. Looking at the accessories, though, that come included with Doc Brown, he comes with his control pad. This is a nice little control pad done all in pink with outlined areas in red and pink down below. Kind of looks like a bar of soap. A long antenna done in skinnier plastic, so again, you want to be careful that you don't break and bend this to the point where it's going to snap off. That's going to make you pretty disappointed and unhappy. I do like that they panel lined the edge, the bottom here, the top here, just so it breaks it up a little bit. And of course, he's got little control dials there on the top. These aren't removable or movable. If you move them, they're just going to break, and you're going to get really sad. And you're going to go for a long walk around the block, regretting the choices and actions that you made. This does also fit into Doc Brown's hands. Not technically the hands already the way that he has them, because the hands on these figures are solid and flat. I mean, he can ask for change. He just can't hold his control console, the little control pad. So what you actually have to do is you have to take these hands off, wiggle them off on one side, wiggle them off on the other side, and you can replace them with these gripping hands. These just plug in the exact same way as we removed them, and on the other side as well. Once those are in place successfully, then what we can do is we can take the little keypad, the little control pad here, and fit that in between his one fingers. Technically, I mean, even really one hand on its own is more than enough to hold it in place. Blizzard test, successful. But if you wanted to, you can actually twist this around and you can wedge it in between both his hands. Kind of like this. I actually had this better working earlier, but the hands do fit. There we go. Securely in place on both sides. And you can actually have it looking like he's holding the remote control. That is certainly a nice touch. And last of his accessories, of course, is his goggles. Now, the goggles just fit over top of his head. They're friction fitted. In other words, when you do put them onto his forehead, it's tight enough of quarters that they're not going to be going anywhere. This is difficult. I'm surprised I'm having such trouble getting these on camera. There we go. You can either have them down, and that looks good, or I prefer myself to have the goggles slightly further up on his head, just like so. You can have them resting just above his eyebrow. You can either do that by raising them up, or you can just take the goggles off, the glasses off, and just mount them to the forehead, and then pinch them behind the ears, and they're not going to be going anywhere. I did go ahead and remove Doc Brown's remote control. I did not, however, remove his goggles. I think they look a little nicer on his forehead. Technically, yes, there are eyebrows that are hiding behind there. They're like little tiny caterpillars hiding in the shadows of the tree. But they are there. I mean, just in case you're curious. All right, we'll take them off. Because yes, there is something that does get forfeited by putting the goggles on his forehead. You do miss these 3 additional dashes of panel lines that NECA Toys put onto the figure. Personally, I don't feel disappointed by having them. So again, just get a good close look. I sort of feel like Doc Brown is absent, not having them in there in the first place. So again, I like to display the figure with them. I'll just put them on the top there and get them down on his ears on either side. There we go. Perfect. Just like that. All right. Good, good, good. Looking at the eyes, again, you've got these little tiny peepers peering right back at you. I do like the big smile that they put on his face as well. That's a happy-go-lucky looking Doc. Christopher Lloyd it was neat the fact that we got Christopher Lloyd making appearances on the show. So he sort of was the opener, and I think he was in the outro as well of the animated series, similar to Sergeant Slaughter in G.I. Joe. How's that? Comparing Christopher Lloyd to Sergeant Slaughter. I do like the coloring that they added by having the pink on the interior of the hair, that it does break it up a little bit, that if they had just kept this all white, I feel like it's not enough of a contrast of colors. Not to mention as well, the white of his hair would then blend into the white of his collar, so it's a nice touch that they added the little pink on the back. I think actually the animated style of Doc Brown was similar in treatment. Of course, he's got his big long lab coat. It's divided here only for the purpose of giving him the articulation, which we'll talk about in a second. Doc Brown has a few little tools in his pocket, a couple of pens, a marker, and perhaps a ruler. Some nice panel lining done on the elbowed areas. Even though these elbows don't bend like traditional elbows, his articulation is only really up here. 2 watches as opposed to Marty's 1. I see your 1 watch, Marty, and I raise you 2. He has them on both sides of his hands. Nice additional coloring that they've added to the interior of the coat. Now, the coat is permanently attached to the legs. You're not going to be able to separate those at all. They're permanently attached. I do like the color of green that they used. My only real thing about this figure is because the way his feet are so small, they kind of look like coffee beans. But they are very, they're not irregularly shaped, but the feet aren't completely flat either, as you can see my finger running across it. So it does cause some stability issues for Doc Brown. I think if you have his arms forward, is sort of the thing where it becomes a bit off-kiltered. He kind of wobbles a little bit. I don't think it's always to the point where he's going to fall over, but of course, if you add the remote control, then you're more gambling at the hopes that he's not just going to teeter over on you. Speaking of the figure's articulation, though, his head rotates back and forth. It does move up and down as well. It's the only thing on the figure that does have a ball joint. Everything else is still relegated to just straight swivels. So the head does move back and forth. It does rock slightly, and yes, it does move up and down that way. The shoulders move back and forth, those straight swivels after all, and the hands do rotate. I find myself more inclined to probably just display him permanently with the gripping hands, because I feel it just makes more sense. I mean, even if I just have the arms draped straight down, it still looks like he's doing something. The flat hands serve little to no purpose because I can't really put the remote control in those hands, so I'm probably just going to default to keeping the hands the way that they are. And last but certainly not least, when it comes to his articulation, his legs do straight forward swivel, and they swivel back as well. I suppose you guys probably are also curious of how Doc Brown, as I've done this comparison with the Marty McFly, will bring in as well the DeLorean. Now again, going back to a point I mentioned before, we can bring in Einstein, and we can certainly bring in also Marty McFly that we just recently had a look at. I feel again like this DeLorean works better with the animated figures than it does work with the movie figures. So don't write off the idea of picking up the DeLorean simply because maybe you don't like the fact that it doesn't have that stainless steel that it has in the movie. Having the toned down colors works quite well, and even it being slightly smaller also works quite well with the more animated style of figures that NECA Toys are producing. Another thing I really liked about the Back to the Future animated series was that its opener featured a cover to the classic song Back in Time. Granted, yes, it wasn't Huey Lewis and the News doing the track, but at the very least, the fact that we did get Back in Time as an opener to the cartoon, and the fact that we also got Christopher Lloyd making appearances, it felt like a richer cartoon and not simply just a cash grab series. The show was successful enough to run 2 years and 26 episodes in total. And again, you probably could easily find them on YouTube, or you can find the complete series on places like Amazon, where all 26 episodes are presented. The series ran 26 episodes, and of course, with 26 episodes, there's a bunch of characters that could be plucked from the series and produced into figure form. Now, really, we only are looking at Series 1 that NECA Toys have produced, which include the Marty McFly already looked at, the Doc Brown currently wrapping up the review of, and the Biff Tannen that we'll have a look at in the upcoming video. There's still, of course, Clara. We could hopefully get a Clara in this, and Jules and Vern. I don't feel like we have to get anyone else, but obviously if they want to expand this line, give us different versions of Biff would be a fun touch as well. Accessory-wise, these figures don't come with much in the way of accessories. If you even look at Doc Brown, he comes only with remote control goggles. But a nice touch is to throw in Einstein. Doc Brown could easily have been packaged on his own, and then we could have just saved Einstein for smaller figure releases like Jules and Vern. But it's a nice touch to see that we get Einstein so early into the series that if it doesn't get any past the point of the release of the 3 figures, at least we have a Marty, at least we have a Doc Brown, an Einstein, and at least we have a Biff. Let's just hope we get more of them, though. A big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of Doc Brown and Einstein that we had a look at in this review. If you've been picking these ones up, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of them, or based on this review. Also, if you're new to the channel and liking the content you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below. And of course, as I always say, move on over to the bell notification. That's the thing. Right now, in the present, in the now, bell notifications apparently are a big thing for YouTube. It's not to say that in a year's time, that bell notification may not be changed to something else, but for the time being, it's a good way to know when new videos are popping up onto this channel. I can also throw the friendly reminder out there as well that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you'll find new videos popping up on this channel. Anyone with the skill set of simple math will know that that's 10 videos a week. There's a whole lot of content coming to this channel on a regular basis. So keep your peepers peeled for that. Still going to have lots and lots and lots of NECA reviews lined up and coming your way. There's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to be getting through. I like to say we, and it's producer Tony sort of in the mix as well. He caters most of the premieres, providing warm brisks at most, and usually pretty stale Ritz crackers. I like to kind of get in there and fix things up before everybody shows up. But yeah, there are premieres also that happen to this channel Monday to Friday. So if you get a chance and you have a little time to spare and you don't have a DeLorean at your disposal, pop on by for a premiere. Have some brisk, have some Ritz crackers, have what I feel would be a good time. And as always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you guys next time.